Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, both to Anissa and the organizers. My name is Dimitris Glynos. I'm one of the founders of Census. Census is a company that offers security assessment services. What this means is that we assess software and hardware from the aspect of security. Our findings are risks that these systems have, and we propose mitigations for these so that vendors and users of this system can use to mitigate these risks. Today we are going to see a few things on the theme of medical device security. I've put the castle of Count Dracula here because it's something which is both very interesting and very horrifying, and I think the same stands for medical device security as well. So as I said, at Census we deliver security assessment services. Some of our past projects in the area of medical system has been the assessment of medical devices. When we say assessment of medical devices, what we do is we take apart these devices and we analyze its software, what is called firmware because it stands there in the hardware. We also analyze the setup of this device in a hospital environment and find security flaws. By security flaws, we mean bugs in the software or generally the system that someone can exploit to bypass the security measures that are there and achieve a goal. For example, collect some sensitive data or whatever. Other projects that we've done is analysis of software that processes DICOM images. Some of our findings in this software have been made public also. We've also conducted penetration tests to clinics and other hospital organizations. For those that are not used to this term, a penetration test is a simulated attack that we perform to an organization to test the security controls that are there, if they are functioning correctly, and so on. And we also do assessments of platforms. For example, we've done an assessment of a public platform for the exchange of medical data in the last year. The devices I'm going to talk about today are called smart devices. Why? Because they have some increased connectivity features. These are devices that can communicate within a network, talk directly, for example, to an information system. They are medical devices. They are like these storage cabinets you can see down there, where you have a specific medicine, and the user uses a specific biometric control, for example, their fingerprint, to access this medicine. And the information system of this hospital knows that this particular user got this amount of medicine and they needed to replace that type of medicine and so on. So these are connected systems, often referred to as Internet of Medical Things. These systems offer remote management options, so you could remotely manage these systems in a way you could see what's going on these systems. You could, for example, have the vendor provide a firmware update if there was a specific bug that this system had. And the way that vendors or other organizations talk to these critical systems is via special gateways that they are used, that they are just like black boxes that these medical devices use to communicate with the vendor. So the vendor uses this black box to issue a firmware upgrade or whatever software upgrade to these systems, so that this happens in a controlled manner. If you're not familiar with the rest of the systems, here you have pacemakers that are also communicating with other devices, such as devices that are for home monitoring, infusion pumps, other types of tomography systems, or even systems that do stock, for example, blood stock cabinets and so on. So what are the typical issues we found in these systems? There are two types of issues. The first type of issue is software issues. These are issues that manifest in the software of these devices. And if you have such an issue, an attacker can control the device, can draw information from this device, but can at sometimes they can also alter the data that are coming out of these devices. For example, the data coming out from a scan. And some of these bugs allow for remote exploitation. Remote exploitation means that if I'm anywhere on the network, let's say that I'm on the same network with this machine, I could exploit this remotely, not having physical access to this machine. So you understand these are critical bugs at times. Now, the second type of issues we're seeing, these are setup issues. These are issues that are in the configuration of these machines, either in a particular organization or the default configuration as provided by the vendor. So what we're seeing is that a lot of medical organizations put these machines on flat networks. So if you're connected at any point in the network, you could reach this type of machines that have this type of bugs. So you have a very scary remote exploitation scenario here. Other types of problems in these systems is that sometimes they use common or default passwords. Now, this photograph here is from a lobby of a hospital where you could get access to the hospital network from the lobby. Okay, so if there was such a medical system on this network, someone could exploit it from the lobby. So what are the risks? Some of these systems are health support systems. So if someone exploits them, there is a danger for casualty. Lives could get lost. Okay, so this is very, very important. The second type of threat we have here is a risk which is connected to the degradation of services. Imagine that you have a stock platform, for example, for blood cells, and someone remotely raises the temperature of the cabinet. Then all of your blood stock would be destroyed, and you would not be able to offer the services that you would like to offer as an organization. Also, other types of risks is, of course, data theft and data disclosure, where we're seeing this more and more as a threat, because if this information reaches securities, for example, companies that offer securities, or companies that are, for example, in the journalist segment, and this information becomes disclosed, then you have a real issue here, both for the patient and for the institution. For example, imagine that for someone who is going to be voted for president, if certain data from specific surgery leaks to the press. And of course, as you understand, this has a big impact also to the organization, which is both in terms of financial cost and reputation. I was recently asked who would be exploiting these vulnerabilities. So, yes, at this point in time, what the major nations in this world see is that this is a new type of terrorism. This is something which is remotely exploitable. This is something that someone could do from another country, get into a hospital network, which is not very secured, and act on these vulnerable devices. A nation-state actor would maybe be able to draw sensitive information from a clinic or a hospital and use that to deduce specific judgments. A thief would be able to, for example, gain access to medical to medicine that he would otherwise not be able to, because this was locked through biometric or other controls. Someone could also be working for a competitive organization, for another organization who is interested in gaining information on or destroying another organization in a financial term. Or it could be an insider who would just would like to cover his tracks after doing something which was nasty, and he would not like for this to be disclosed in the hospital. But it doesn't really matter, because these are setup and software bugs. We can fix these. As I said, these are software bugs which we can fix. But what are the obstacles there? Why don't we fix these? The first thing to point is that vendors will only do so much so that the security they provide is okay to get a certification for their product. So if we put the bar here, they will only do this much of security work in their product. The second thing to note is that when, for example, a company, just like Census, finds a security bug in a medical device, then it takes a very long patch schedule for this update to become available to hospitals. Why? Because it is very difficult. The actual process that it takes for a specific vendor to test the device is a very lengthy one, and also has a lot of checks that are there because of the certifications that need to be passed for this product to be made available, or this update to be made available to hospitals. So this is a very lengthy process. And what does this mean for the end consumer? What does this mean for the hospital? This means that they could be exposed to vulnerability for 1, 2 years more. Okay, this is a very lengthy process. Doctors don't tend to they don't prefer specific equipment because they have passed certain security assessments. That's not in their nature. They prefer specific equipment that they know and that they have used in the past and that they like. Their judgment is not going to one or the other side because this particular device has certain vulnerabilities and so on. Also, we see that medical devices are not treated as critical infrastructure. They are life-supporting systems, but they're not treated as critical infrastructure in the cyberspace sort of term. So, what do we mean? We usually find these set up and used in insecure environments, so like the flat networks I previously stated. And the way they are used is that, okay, this is just a device, I will just put some files there, I will just get the files, and I'm not to worry about what happens if someone could remotely get those files. Also, if a vulnerability exploitation occurs, this will probably go unnoticed because hospitals are not banks right now. Hospitals tend not to have ZMs, they tend to not have control systems and auditing systems that look for specific exploitation of vulnerabilities, live exploitation of vulnerabilities. They can't monitor an exploitation going on at that point in time. So what must we do? The first thing we must do is introduce security governance in medical institutions. What this means is that we need information security officers in medical institutions, not just IT officers, not just IT guys. We need someone who is responsible for taking care of these vulnerabilities, for managing these vulnerabilities in the length of time, for being able to sign a document that says that, you know, these vulnerabilities are known and have been mitigated in this way. We also need security awareness across the staff of a medical organization, because otherwise the staff will never know that these type of exploitations are going on or have been going on. Three points where security assessments must occur are these. The first one is for security assessments to occur at the vendor side. Okay, you may think this is natural, but this is not occurring at the level we would like to at this point. So what do we propose? What we propose is for the vendor to follow what is called a secure SDLC, a secure software development lifecycle, or a secure product development lifecycle. What this does is that in each phase of development, let's say that in the design phase, in the actual development phase, or the release phase, you also expect deliverables from a security standpoint, not just from the product standpoint. Okay, so in this way, you have what is called security by design. You have products where security has been addressed while the product was being developed. And this has a much lower cost for the vendor than patching a specific product after this has been released. The second point where security assessments must occur is at the certification body. The certification body that accredits a specific device to be able to be rolled out to the market must perform security assessments using an independent assessment body. This has to be an independent assessment that occurs at this second phase to be sure that the product security cycle that has been done at the vendor has been done correctly. Okay, so we may catch those final bugs there. Now, there's a third point where security assessment must occur, and this is in situ. This is when these medical devices are installed in hospitals. At that point, what we must test is the actual configuration and the actual installation if it has been done in a secure manner. And this is something that the hospitals can do with the help of companies that do security assessments. Of course, since we're talking about security and critical infrastructure, we must also introduce a security architecture for these medical devices. So we must introduce the architecture which will allow us to control the physical access to this device, for example, smart cards, who has network access to this device, for example, introduce firewalls and segmented networks and so on, and also who this device talks to. So you would imagine this device talks to an information system. Is it able to talk to all information systems? Why? This shouldn't happen. It should only talk to the information system which it requires for its function, and nothing more. Now, the next thing we must introduce is we need a mechanism to audit all interactions with this device. So we can't have common or default passwords used with this device. Each user must have their own credentials, which they use when they do actions on this device, so that this gets logged and you know which user may have created an issue on these devices. And integrating, for example, with Active Directory or other services helps here. Also, the final step we must take from the security architecture point of view is to protect the data storage and the transmission of these devices. Although the DICOM standard says that there is provision for security, for encryption, for example, for medical data, none of the vendors actually use this. Why? Because there are backwards compatibility reasons, because they want their data to be able to use across all devices, and because these devices don't support this type of encryption, they don't use encryption at all. They don't offer that as an option at all. So we must make sure that when data are generated from this device, these are stored encrypted and integrity protected, and these are transmitted over the network, both encrypted and integrity protected. The final note I would like to make is that of openness. When a particular vendor, let's say a device, has a specific vulnerability, this vulnerability must be known to all stakeholders. This means that, for example, all hospitals around the world that have this device have to know that they have a device with this specific vulnerability that, for example, can be remotely exploited and can kill someone. Okay. Right now, I know that Europe has some provision on a database for medical devices, but this is not exactly what Europe has envisioned. What we need is a cert type directory of this type of vulnerabilities, because these vulnerabilities are not 1 or 2 vulnerabilities per device. It could be hundreds. The second thing I would like to note is that we should allow security research to occur on medical devices. We should not make this illegal. Up to the last few months, it wasn't possible in the United States to say that you've done security research on a medical device and these are the results that I found. Okay, this was controlled. And this is slowly changing, and this must also be something which is allowed in Europe as well and elsewhere. Because this type of security research will show us also new types of issues that we're not yet aware of. And we are going to see these devices in a completely new approach. With this, I will end my presentation. Thank you very much.